All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are our 2023 preview and prediction for the SEC. A lot going on for this conference as they look to wrap up another national championship, entering the new playoff era. And obviously, Nick, this is a loaded conference once again. LSU, they're able to win the West last season in Brian Kelly's first season. Alabama and Nick Saban looking for a bit of a revenge campaign this year, as Georgia seems to be pulling away as the dominant program. Also, when we look at the East, you'll see Tennessee, Kentucky, even Missouri starting to catch up. A lot more competitiveness, I think, all around in this conference before the slight expansion with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma. What's a quick rundown of your expectations for this conference? I'd imagine 2 more teams in the playoffs is going to be the goal.
Absolutely, 2 teams in the playoff is very achievable with the way this conference is stacked up. I look at some of these teams in the conference; they're very talented. Georgia, Alabama. A&M's looking to finally break through. LSU had a very strong first season under Brian Kelly. Tennessee, very talented program as well. Missouri knocking on the door. South Carolina, they came alive. Wade, Ole Miss, and Auburn are all very improved as well. Auburn under a new head coach, a lot to question with them. What can you expect out of Auburn year 1 under Hugh Freeze? Overall, the conference is in a very good spot as it moves to this new era. As it adds Texas and Oklahoma, there are a lot of talented teams in this conference, a lot of great coaches, and a lot of talented players overall. I think the conference would like to get 2 teams in the playoff again. I think it's certainly possible. But I think one team is guaranteed. We just got to figure out which one it's going to be. They come from the West to the East.
Looking at the SEC East, obviously Georgia, they're looking to get the 3rd straight national title under their belt, and that's going to lead to another title here. In this side of the division, 12-0 for me, obviously a very easy schedule. I won't give them any crap for that because they went out and scheduled a tough non-conference over the next decade. Just happens to be odd timing with them hunting down that coveted 3rd straight title. Georgia Bulldogs are phenomenal. You look at the offensive side of the ball, A-plus unit for me. Obviously, they do lose their quarterback. They lose, running back. They lose some talent top to bottom. Not worried one bit for a unit this phenomenal. Carson Beck, high IQ player, is a student of the game. Big arm quarterback with some good feet, moves very well in the pocket. I think he's going to take over this position with ease. The backfield, they do a better job than anybody in the country of keeping these boys fresh, about 10, 11 carries per game for each of them. Kendall Milton, though, a lot of work as an inside runner, a strong physical guy. He's going to be the lead back. Dejon Edwards, a one-cut downhill runner. And then Branson Robinson, a big, thick frame, very good fit for the scheme at 5'10", 220. The biggest thing they're losing, though, in, Mike Bobo becoming the offensive coordinator, the thing they're losing in Todd Monken's departure is just the timing of play calls. His timing, I thought, was better than anybody's in the country when it comes to calling plays. Obviously, very easy with all this stuff at disposal. Obviously, Brock Bowers, probably the greatest tight end talent I've ever seen. Elite athlete for his size with some great breakaway speed. He gets up the seam in a hurry with some great concentration. Ladd McContney, a player who's good in the open field. 2 ads in the portal, and Rob Thomas, who's a very acrobatic pass catcher. Dominic Lovett, 5'10", 187 from Missouri, who was elite in the slot with great speed. The rich get richer here on offense for Georgia. Nick, the supporting cast is deeper than most teams in the country, especially in the backfield.
It's a very good unit that has added a lot of talent. Carson Beck, very good quarterback, step in and replace the departing quarterback. Now, I think he's a good player, 6'4", 215. I love the size, high football IQ. Good player to have, a running back room by committee. Kendall Milton, Dejon Edwards, Brandon Robinson, all very talented backs. You can kind of pick your back who you want to go with there. They spread it out. They spread the wealth to try and avoid putting too many miles on their running backs. I think it's a great strategy. It certainly works out great. This offense put up 41.1 points per game last year. Certainly a lot of points. Ladd McConkey, very solid player. Rob Thomas, Dominic Lovett, 2 incredible ads from the portal. Like you said, the rich get richer, adding 2 very talented SEC players, basically just walking up to 2 schools in Missouri and Mississippi State and saying, hey, I'm going to take your best wide receiver and bring him to Athens and try and win a 3rd national championship in a row. Very interesting moves from Kirby Smart. You got to love, sort of the boldness to do that. I like Ladd McConkey a lot. Arian Smith as well is a good player. And then obviously Brock Bowers. Tough to really explain how talented he is because he's the best tight end I've ever seen in college football. One of the best, just very diverse and truly athletic players I've seen in college football. He has so much raw talent. He can really do anything you want. Really the only thing that's going to let this offense down is the switch from coordinator. I think Mike Bobo comes in. It's just not the greatest switch from Todd Monken. I think Monken was, like you said, really great with the calling of the timing of the calling of the plays. Monken just didn't like to recruit. Now he bolts for the NFL. Mike Bobo stepping in. I'm a little concerned about it because his offenses in the past have struggled a little bit. That's my only concern, though, here with Georgia. This is a very talented offense on paper.
Good news for Bobos, who have the nation's top offensive line at his disposal. Cedric Van Pran, an athletic, great vocal leader in the middle, some quick feet, 6'4", 310. Tate Ratledge, good agility on some breach blocks. He isn't all that strong, but only had one sack this past fall, 6'6", 315. Both starting guards in total are back. Xavier Truss, he had 700 plus snaps last year. Struggles to stay engaged at times, but he's an active player who's 6'7", 320. Ernest Green, an upcoming sophomore, versatile, powerful run blocker. He's going to be 6'4", 330. And then Marius Mims, a player who's great at tackle. Him and J.C. Lather are going to compete for probably top honors in this conference. Inconsistent hand placement, though. He does play too high, can take bad angles. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't really understand his assignment. This is a player still, I think it was a former 5-star with some great lateral agility, 6'7", 330. The size is great. I think they're the best just because the physicality is great. Even if they do struggle in individual areas, maybe, left, right guard, they could certainly hold them down at times. Ernest Green, being a youthful guy, might struggle. But in terms of physicality, there's nobody matching what they do, and that's why they're number one.
I agree. This is an offensive line that's incredible. Just great size. Ernest Green, Xavier Truss, two really talented players. On the left side of the offensive line, the center as well, Cedric Van Pran, is an incredible center. This is a very talented, beefy offensive line that's got some great size, great players. They continue to produce incredible offensive lines here in Athens. They're going to do it again this year.
On the defensive side of the ball, they ranked top 2 in run defense the last 4 years, average of under 76 yards per game allowed in that span. Defensive line, they do lose Barry Alexander late in the cycle to the portal. Something to do with the coaching staff there. He heads out to L.A. Nazir Stackhouse, though, his gas tank isn't great, but he does have good shoulder going. He really slices through gaps. Marvin Jones, a former 5-star, a long athletic pass rusher, missed all of the spring. Michael Williams, a good speed to power player. Bull rusher, great power. I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. At times last season, really got to see his potential as a true freshman 5-star player. And Zion Logue, Warren Brinson. Obviously, some of these guys are really just going to be names, Nick, but they, again, like the offensive line, they bring physicality. This run defense, no one's going to crack it. The pass rush still seems to be a bit of a concern. Marvin Jones are hoping to get something out of him with, a variety of pass rush moves. Chaz Chambliss, a very basic pass rushing plan. Ran straight at Darnell Washington 20 straight times in a row. Not sure what he's doing there. And I said numerous times last year, not worried about the lack of edge presence because they'll find a way to get their production and put it on the opposing quarterback, and they certainly did that at times throughout last season. Defensive line is great. Edge rushing presence, not so much, but Michael Williams at defensive end is really going to, add some explosiveness, I'd say, to that part of this defense.
Michael Williams is certainly an explosive player. Great size, good speed to power, nice ball rusher in Nazir Stackhouse. Good player, certainly worries about him. He's not a 3-down player, right? He gets gassed out on the field. He's an incredible player, good shoulder, lean, nice, nice contact in the hole. Marvin Jones Jr., a nice defensive edge player as well. Chaz Chambliss needs to improve, his game plan, like you said, struggled against Darnell Wright. Really needs to improve and find a way to get past that, better on stunts. He's a good player, though, 6'2", 250. I like what he can do. When he gets in the backfield, he's great at getting after the quarterback. He just needs to find a way to get past his offensive lines.
Behind them, Jamon Dumas Johnson, Smell Munden, probably the second best linebacking duo in the country. Great play recognition from Dumas Johnson, sideline to sideline pursuit, speed. Everything checks out, explosiveness. Some people think he may be even better than Kobe Dean was. Munden really gets downfield in a hurry. Good tackler. Former 5-star Xavier Sori. Might move him to outside backer. Some good strength. We'll see what he does if he gets on the field this season. Then you look at the secondary. We expected them to struggle against Ohio State. Kind of predicted against LSU too. We said they might be in some trouble. Gave them 500 plus yards. Kamari Lassiter, though, he's one of those guys that didn't look all that bad against LSU. They barely targeted him. They almost made no plays on his side of the field. Great speed for him. Dalen Everett feels routes, great physical press. These are all former 5-stars, including Malachi Starks, who certainly at times struggled in coverage, but he also showcased some great abilities in coverage with, his acrobatic ability, great run stopper, student of the game. So those coverage busts, you're going to see a lot less of those this season. Javon Bullard, he was strictly a slot cornerback. It looks like they're going to move him to safety, though, but they expect him to be a versatile defender. He's great with blitzing from that spot. They certainly were able to get him involved when they needed, which, again, you knew they were going to find a way to do it, and he was the guy they turned to. With some elite instincts, a fluid player is good against the run. This is a great secondary in terms of talent, Nick, but we expected them to get flamed the last 2 games of the year. That's exactly what happened.
Jamon Dumas Johnson's a good linebacker. Smell Munden, great linebacker. This is a great 1-2 puncher. These guys are incredible. Like one of the best linebacking units in the country. Very talented, hard-hitting linebackers. Xavier Sori as well. Another good player. Could potentially moved around. Good player, though. And I like his size, 6'3", 214. Malachi Starks, very acrobatic athlete. Very talented player. Gets downhill in a hurry. Javon Bullard, Smoke Bullier as well. Very talented ads. Dalen Everett as well. This is a secondary that's just stacked tops to bottoms. It's got beat at times, though. pick them to lose to Ohio State because the secondary worried me, and it still worries me right now. I think the issue with the secondary is they haven't quite proved to me that they're able to keep up with some of those high-flying pass attacks, air raid total offenses. I think it's a very good unit, but I just get worried about this unit. They get beat very easily, and they don't let the play stay in front of them, and they make some mistakes.
Certainly the reason why I picked Alabama to beat them in the SEC title game 2 years ago, and what do you know, everyone said I was going to be wrong. Bryce Young absolutely let them up. The defensive line, they just always seem to do the heavy lifting, and when they're not, the secondary seems to suffer. Look at the biggest competition, I think, in this division, the Kentucky Wildcats. Liam Cohen coming over, certainly going to, him coming back to man this offense is going to be big. Devin Leary, a player who's showcased top-notch accuracy and touch. He's going to replace Will Levis. Ray Davis comes over from Vanderbilt with some great vision and patience. I'm a fan of Ramon Jefferson coming back from a torn ACL. He's ridiculously elusive, really can stop on a dime and can cut, hoping that he's as good as he was at Sam Houston 21 before that injury. Look at the trio of pass catchers they have. Barian Brown, great second gear and acceleration. Dane Key, great hands of elite focus, a 6'3", 194. Travion Robinson, a dynamic, versatile slot weapon. In terms of the guys I just read off, Nick, they have plenty of guys in these skill positions, maybe not the greatest of depth, but if Devin Leary can certainly thrive under Liam Cohen in this offensive line, it was just downright awful last year, can step up a little bit. They might have something on this side of the ball after being 112th, that is, in scoring offense.
There certainly is some potential with this Kentucky offense. Devin Leary is a good quarterback they add in here. I like him a lot. I think he's got some good size, nice pocket passer, good player overall. Ray Davis, Ramon Jefferson, two nice running backs to have. Good duo there. Nice 1-2 punch certainly to have. This wide nice talent, and the offensive line units made some work in the portal. The tight end room is also deep as well. I think this Kentucky team is heading in the right direction on offense. They struggled last year despite having Will Levis as their quarterback. They need to find a way to improve because Mark Stoops has put out some good defenses, but the offenses have struggled recently.
Yeah, that offensive line, flat out awful. Eli Cox was disappointing. Jagger Burton was a big liability for them. Kenneth Horsey, he was actually pretty solid. Marquise Cox was elite at NIU in his 4 games last season. Cortland Ford comes over from USC. I think it's big news, though. Liam Cohen, he already has experience with these guys, so he's going to start to do some shuffling, see where they can, plug and play these guys. Defensive side of the ball, I really feel like this could have been a unit that really could have shined because, they held Georgia in check for the most part, during the season, 12th in points and yards per game allowed. They returned 6 starters. It's a veteran group on the interior D-line, Octavius Oxidine. Not real great last year, but proved to be a solid run stopper at 21. DeLon Walker, 6'6", 330, highly impressive as a true freshman. Josiah Hayes, 6'3", 309, needs some more production. They only had 20 sacks as a team, so the defensive line needs to step up. They have names here that can produce. J.J. Weaver, typical hybrid edge defender, good length. He can create some separation, great asset and coverage due to his awareness. And then the linebacking core, obviously they're going to lose Jordan Wright, DeAndre Square. DeAndre Jackson, though, the leading tackler for them, was a good run defender. Trevin Wallace, also a really good tackler. Outside linebacker, they're going to lean on Keytron Wade, Tyrese Fearbry, maybe Grant Godfrey, an incoming 4-star. Some good young talent there. They're going to have to be big for them, the outside linebacking position. But you look at this front 7, I think it's actually a pretty solid unit, this 3-4. Brad White coaches up. He does a great job with these linebackers, so I'm not really too worried about the middle, even if these guys are a little bit younger. Some of the experience coming back is great. I think this is certainly going to be a part of this defense that really flourishes.
This is a good team that has a nice defensive line and a good linebacking unit certainly as well. Octavius Oxenine is a very good player. Nice, solid run stopper. DeLone Walker as well, 6'6", 330. I like his size. Highly impressive player. Josiah Hayes, another good player. J.J. Weaver, I like him. A nice edge defender there. Very talented. Derek Jackson as well. Leading tackler, returning. Trayvon Wallace as well is another good piece to add. The secondary has some solid pieces. They were a sneaky good defense last year. 19.2 points per game given up. They were very good against the pass. 180 points per game given up, 7th in the nation. So certainly this defense has some good pieces. Mark Stoops has been building a good defense his time in Kentucky, and they look pretty good this year.
Yeah, the secondary certainly something to monitor. Carrington Valentine, Cadron Smith apart. Veteran safety group, though, Jalen Geiger is back from injury. Jordan Levitt really shined in his absence. Other safeties, Zion Childress was even better as a coverage defender and in the run. Geiger may occupy the slot. Both starting cornerbacks depart. Jakey Hardaway, though, highly touted from Fickle's DB factory. From Cincinnati's great potential. Andrew Phillips was a quality player. Was mainly in the slot, going to move out wide. And then Jentez Dunn, maybe from Ohio State, can get involved. I think top to bottom, this is a very sound defense. They might not have the greatest of talents, maybe like a Georgia or an LSU and whatnot. These guys, Brad White, again, does a great job with them. They coach them up. I think they're going to be forceful once again. I think they'll be even better than people expect.
I think they will be a very good unit. Like you said, Brad White certainly coaches these guys up. They're very hard-hitting. Has a good secondary. They're very good against the pass last year. Very solid against the run as well. This is a good team overall that has a lot of high-end potential here. Their transition action, I like this Kentucky team a lot, especially on defense.
You look at Tennessee, a lot of people think this will be Georgia's toughest competition. Maybe it will be. They have to come to Neyland this season late in the year. There's a lot of turnover to discuss, though. Joe Milton, everyone has high expectations for him, which I think is just kind of, I feel bad for the kid because he has this 5-star breathing down his neck. Nico Lemaleva, Hendon Hooker was the People's Heisman last year. He has a cannon for an arm, 6'5", 245, veteran, great teammate. Struggles with accuracy and control, though. Obviously had a really good game against Clemson, but the week before that wasn't all that ideal. Well, the game before that is, against Vanderbilt, wasn't all that effective or efficient, that is. Joe Milton, though, this is a player who has great potential. I think he's really primed for this role, but the expectations here are just incredibly high, Nick. And you're going to pair that up, though, with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. Great toughness from Small, can really make that first defender miss. The more explosive back in Jalen Wright has a bit of a fumble issue. And kind of like Ole Miss, the run game, 200 yards per contest. That's what gets this offense started. They love to spread you out, run right downhill, and then here comes the tempo, and boom, that's when they address it towards you. Joe Milton, though, again, Nick, these expectations, how does he manage these upcoming season? Because he'll be massively disappointed if he doesn't.
Extremely high expectations for Joe Milton. He's a very talented, nice, good veteran teammate. 6'5", 245. I think the expectations are just way too high on Joe Milton. Tennessee, wants to build momentum. That was one of their best seasons in the past 20 years last year. It was a very exciting time on Rocky Top. They beat Alabama for the first time in 15 years. They seem to be going the right direction. That they lost to Georgia and South Carolina, just derailed their season. Milton's a very good quarterback. I just don't know if he's the guy for this team. I just don't trust him right now. I think Nico Lava obviously is a very talented 5-star recruit coming in, 6'6", 205. He's fantastic in the pocket. Great athleticism. I think he's a good runner as well. I think he should be the starter, but Joe Milton's going to get the job for now. But Milton, he's got all the pressure in the world. Like you said, I would hate to be the kid right now because he's just in a tough spot leading this offense.
Yeah, incredibly bold take. One I disagree with. A true freshman 5-star should not be the starter at all. I think the veteran here in Milton certainly should have an opportunity to, impress himself. I think he'll certainly do a formidable job, but I'm not sure if I want to call him a Heisman contender or anything just yet. But he'll have plenty of guys at his disposal. Brew McCoy, great as an outside wide receiver. Good high point with focus, great on comebacks and curls. Only one drop this past season, really starting to come into his own after a tough go to his start of his college career. Ramil Keaton really expected to fill that Jalen Hyatt role, with his great stop-start, elite downfield speed. Dante Thornton also, has great speed, downfield threat with great hands, a lanky pass catcher, 6'5", 199. He can really track the ball well. Limited usage at Oregon. Former highly touted recruit, though. Obviously, they have some depth issues to maybe concerned with, but these type of offenses, they typically get these guys involved gradually. The top 3 guys we just named, though, they're going to come in here, and I think they're going to flourish in this offense just well.
This is a good wide receiving core that has some nice players. Brew McCoy, very good player. Ramal Keaton, Dante Thornton as well. 2 talented players that have their step up. This is a deep unit that has some nice players. Squirrel White, another good player. Caleb Webb, Charles Nimrod as well. And they also have some nice players in Nate Spillman and Nathaniel Leacock as well. True that could be involved as well. This is a deep unit that's some nice talented players. Brew McCoy's a very good leader at the wide receiver X role.
It would be a detriment to forget mentioning Squirrel White. He's also going to be a guy who gets involved this year. The offensive line, obviously, this is a unit that really wasn't all that great. Really upset by the scheme. They have good depth and experience. Miami transfer John Campbell, they're looking to get him involved a little bit. Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins really struggled, though. Ollie Lane, a super senior at guard. So we'll see what this offensive line does. Last year really wasn't a big problem. They do lose Wright and Jerome Calvin up front. So something maybe to monitor as we go on through this season. Defensive side of the ball was good in terms of numbers. They were good against the run, points per game, though there certainly weren't any flukes. They forced 22 turnovers. Tyler Barron, great power, really allows him to be the team's best pass rusher and run defender. Barron was phenomenal, really dominates tight ends with some good play recognition. The defensive line's deep. Kamara Garland, 6'3", 310, effective run stopper, really plugged holes. Amari Thomas, I was happy with his play. Bryson Eason, 6'3", 300. Lamar Norman Lott. Tyree West had 5 tackles for loss. Coleman Harrison wasn't all that bad. He's really expected to fill that Byron Young role. And then Dominic Bailey, he saw nearly 300 snaps as a 270-pounder. Very quality up front, Nick. Obviously, none of these guys outside of Barron are really going to step up. None of them really home run names, but they collectively play very good football, and that's exactly what this football team needs.
It's a good unit, certainly some nice size here. These guys are hard, good, solid blocking play. Ollie Lane's a good player to return as well. Unless they lose some players, they have to replace Jamar Crawford as well. Battles offensive line. He has some opportunities. Anderson Nichols as well is a good player. John Campbell coming over from Miami, 6'5", 320. Nice high upside as a pass blocker. I like this offense overall. There's a lot of solid pieces here. They put up a ton of points and a ton of yards per game last year. I expect a regression certainly with Joe Milton at the helm, but overall this is a good unit that has some nice players. It's just a big question how many points per game they can score, how many yards per game they can score, and how far the drop-off is going to be for this offense.
Yeah, and you continue to just kind of press on the defensive side of the ball. Aaron Beasley was a very effective player shooting gaps, coming downhill in a hurry versus a run where he plays above his size with a nice motor. Keenan Philly, 1,400 snaps at BYU. Very quality player. Figured last year depth at linebacker would be a problem. I think that's certainly going to catch up to him. Arian Carter, maybe Preston Action, an incoming 4-star. Elijah Herring, only about 100 snaps last year. So linebacker last year was a very strong point for this football team. Getting Beasley back is phenomenal. Jeremy Banks' departure, though, certainly going to be something to monitor. I think overall it's a great front seven. They stopped the run. They had 11 fumbles last year, and they certainly were a big reason why. So how do you feel about the middle part of this defense, Nick, and the defensive line? Because the secondary obviously is going to be another issue we'll get to in a second.
I think this is a unit that has some nice players. I think they do return enough talent. Aaron Beasley, very good at shooting the gaps, very good linebacker, hard-hitting, nice returning player. Crute Garland, a nice solid run blocker, very good as well. Amari Thomas as well. He's a good player to anchor defensive line. Omar Norman Lott's a good player as well, coming over from Arizona State. Bryson Eason as well is another good player, needs to step up to replace players like Byron Young, who left, Roman Harrison as well. Keon Pill coming over from BYU, nice quality starter. Elijah Herring as well, didn't play a whole lot, makes this linebacker unit a little bit thin, but overall this front seven is a good enough unit. I think they'll be able to get the quarterback. There are some nice players that can plug holes, and they are a good unit.
Yeah, there's plenty of veterans back in the secondary. They're 127th last year against the pass. The Nico Slaughter was probably their best cover corner. Warren Burrell was hurt early last year. He's been an average player on his time. Gabe Judy-Lally from BYU is a really good player, and they're going to expect him to come in here, take a starting role. All three starting safeties are back. Jalen McCullough was a good run defender. Tamari McDonald, Wesley Walker, I thought he was probably their best all-around defensive back. He's going to see an enhanced snap count this season. Plenty of experience is back. Horrendous pass defense. Improvement seems imminent, but I'm not betting it on the table for it.
I agree the secondary has some nice pieces, but I think there are some issues certainly underlying. Diego Slaughter is a good cover corner return. Warren Burrell, good to see him back as well. Jalen McDonough as well. Tamari McDonald, Wesley Walker, all players that have some nice experience. Walker's a good defensive back, but the secondary was poor last year. They really struggled against the 127th in the nation. I think they're going to struggle again this year. It's going to be a nice problem for this team. They're going to struggle to be able to get plays done through the air and defend the pass.
Now looking at the Missouri Tigers, a bit of a sleeper team here in this conference. Eli Drinkwitz looking to try to get something better out of his offense. Kirby Moore here to try and run this. Brady Cook seems poised as a good threat, as a runner as well, smooth athlete with some good mobility. Committee approach once again is expecting, Walken Cody Schrader. They'll really showcase good speed as a slasher. Nathaniel Pete from Stanford also has some nice breakaway speed. I think they're happy with the duo they have. 154.6 rush yards per game, though, certainly needs to be improved upon. In the receiving core, Luther Burden, the next 5-star, really expecting a breakout from him. A dangerous yak player. Going to use him probably more in the slot this season. 8.3 yards per catch, though, really needs to double that. Theo Weiss brings some nice size of 6'3", 205. Mookie Cooper seen significant playing time the past 2 seasons. Staff seems very high on a guy like Mekhi Miller as well. No real worries here at wide receiver. They also picked up Dennis Jackson from Ole Miss. I think this is a very formidable unit led by that 5-star. And on the offensive line, Javon Foster, a player at tackle, has great strength, really anchors down well. Good displacement in the run game with some good length. I think we should see improvements from this offensive line this year. Marcellus Johnson's going to be at center. Xavier Delgado still there to compete. Cameron Johnson was a standout for Houston. So they made some big-time improvements, along with the return of some veterans. This offense, Nick, it's a very interesting unit because they don't exactly, outside of Burden, have elite talent. Maybe Foster you could throw in that category. 25 points per game, though. I think that can be up to at least 30 because last year, at least watching that Tennessee game, it seemed like they had a nice threat to score on any given play. And I think they can pick up some big chunks of yards this upcoming season.
This is an offense certainly improving under Eli Drinkwitz. Brady Cook's a solid quarterback. Nice, good player as well. Nice athlete with good mobility. Luther Burden, he's a player that could certainly break out this year. I'm super excited to see what he can do. An X5-star. Stays at Missouri, doesn't transfer. He stayed home when he was recruited originally. Luther Burden's an incredible player. I think he can certainly break out this year. I'm excited to see what he can do. A by-committee approach, certainly great for his Missouri team. Cody Schrader, nice speed, good player as well. who could be involved in this offense. Nathaniel Pete's a nice add from Stanford, good player who's a nice hard running back. Mookie Cooper, very good player. Theo Weiss, a nice transfer to add as well. This offensive line has some solid players. Javon Foster is a very good left tackle, one of the best in the nation, 6'5", 320, a nice true athlete there. Xavier Delgado as well as a pretty good offensive line piece.
Defensive side of the ball, they went from 124th to 32nd nationally against the run this past year, showcased great improvements there. Maybe going to take a bit of a step back. They lose some impactful players like Isaiah McGuire up front. Darius Robinson was a great defensive end for them. Really good run defender. Joe Moore from Arizona State in the portal. They picked up some other guys, like Niles Gady from Jackson State. Added 3 players in total to the pass rushing department. They're not really thrilled with the depth they have at this moment in time. Good run defender on the interior, Kristen Williams, 314 pounds. Jaden Jernigan really struggled for the most part of last year. Relius George was a good run stopper. So I think they have, a pretty interesting defensive line, plenty of experience and some nice depth, especially on the interior. Tyrone Hopper, a thinner frame, violent hitter, agile athlete, great change of direction at linebacker. He's phenomenal, one of the nation's best. And then Chad Bailey. This is a player who was an elite performer, was impressive in coverage, really good against the run. Depth in the middle here isn't all that great. Tristan Newsome, a 215-pounder from JUCO. And Damian Wilson only saw 150 snaps. Chad Bailey, though, was suspended earlier this offseason for a DWI. They need him on the field, Nick, so hopefully they can get all that cleared up.
I agree. Chad Bailey is a very talented player. They need to continue to get on the field. Suspension would certainly be an issue. This is a unit that was pretty decent last year. Underrated defensive unit that improved. Darius Robinson's a good player to return. Tyrone Hopper, nice thin-framed linebacker who gets after the ball. Chad Bailey, his suspension for DUI is obviously an issue, but if he's on the field, he's a very elite performer. Chris Abrams-Drainey as well is a very good player. Ernest Ruckshaw is a very nice player as well. Terez Johnson is a nice player that can be there. He transferred over from Florida. Overall, this is a good unit. They gave up 25.2 points per game this past season. They can certainly improve that number. This is a good unit that's certainly heading in the right direction.
Yeah, the secondary is the biggest thing for me to watch in this division. Abrams-Drainey and Rackstraw, really good cornerback duo. Dylan Carnell was good in the slot. Jaden Carlisle and Joseph Charleston, 2 players who were really solid against the run last season. I think the Missouri secondary can really make some waves this year. 7-5 for me. The schedule's quite tough, but I think they can probably knock a team off or two. And they almost knocked off Georgia last year. Something to monitor. You look at South Carolina Gamecocks. Obviously, everyone loves Beamer ball, and they really started to click at the end of last season. Most part of that, even before they beat Clemson, Nick, in the upset over Tennessee, they got hammered by 30-plus points against Florida. So it took them a minute to come around. They finally did there at the end of the year. Looked good in the bowl game, too. Let that one get away from them. South Carolina, though, 5-7. I think the schedule is tough. And I don't think this team is very talented at all. Spencer Rattler really wasn't even all that good last year, despite being a phenomenal talent. Great arm, elite zipped all areas of the field, top velocity downfield. The vision and decision-making is still big concerns, though. Mario Anderson comes over from Newberry College to, try to upbeat a running back duo. It's really not all that great. Antoine Wells was great from James Madison last year, an electric player. Eddie Lewis, a big weapon from Memphis. He's had a great offseason, figures to be a reliable option for them. Offensive line was 122nd in the tackles for loss allowed last year. None of the returning pieces really seemed to pan out last year. Maybe Rashawn Lee, Trey Jones, Sidney Fugers, somebody can step up here for them. This offense is just really not that great, Nick. 32.2 points per game. I don't feel like that really tells the full story, though, because they couldn't run the ball for the most part of the year. The passing game really didn't seem to click all that well either. I just don't think they're that talented on this side of the ball, other than a couple of receivers and then, of course, Spencer Rattler.
Rattler is a very good talent. This offense is kind of a hit and miss type of piece. It seems to be they're plugging together random pieces that's hoping they work. Spencer Rattler is a very good quarterback. We saw that at the end of last year. But Rattler, it's sort of like flipping a coin. You never know what you're going to get with Spencer Rattler. You could get a very good player, a very poor player on any given Saturday. It was hit or miss, which is a really big problem for the South Carolina Gamecocks. The running back room is a little shallow. I don't really like what I see here. Mario Anderson, Juju McDowell, 2 kind of hit or miss players that could work out. Wide receiving core, Antoine Wells is a nice add from JMU. There are some solid players as well. And Xavier Leggett and Trey Knox is a good add from Tennessee, or from Arkansas, sorry. But playing tight end, Trey Knox, good player. Offensive line was very poor last year. Certainly needs to see improvement out of them.
Defensive side of the ball, they really struggled against the run at 117th nationally. Expected this entire unit last year to be a really good one. Looking back on it, Nick, I really don't know why. Probably because the secondary had a lot of talent, and Marcellus Dial was really good for them. O'Donnell Fortune was really solid in coverage. David Spalding's a veteran. 2 rising sophomores, Nick Inwarani and DQ Smith. These guys were phenomenal for them. So the secondary is going to be great, but that linebacking core just doesn't seem to be a typical SEC room. Mohamed Kaba only saw the field 2 times last year. Debo Williams, he was, solid. for them. Wasn't all that great, though. Bam Martin Scott really made some waves when he was on the field. Stone Bland really wasn't good one bit. Concerns with the linebacking room. Tonka Hemingway, excellent feel for working off blocks, off the edge, high effort pass rusher. They're really going to lean on him a lot this year. And the return of Jordan Strawn, I think, is nice. So they certainly have an impactful starting edge duo. I think 20 sacks from a season ago. Certainly going to see that number go up a little bit. But on the interior, they do have some veterans: T.J. Sanders, Alex Huntley, Nick Barrett. Tyreek Johnson was an ample performer for them. Again, I just don't think this defense is all that talented outside of some of these individual talents. Only 4 starters on this side of the ball return. Secondary will be a strong suit. Run defense, though, might be just as bad as it was a season ago.
Run defense was certainly poor. Tonka Hemingway is a very good defensive here. Nice edge rusher. Alex Huntley's pretty solid in the interior. TJ Sanders, Nick Barrett as well are involved. Mohamed Kaba is a good linebacker. Debo Williams as well. Nice piece to return. The secondary is weak. There are some talented players overall. I like the unit. They were decent last year, but I think they were just a little bit weak this year. Overall, this defense is just weak. It leaves a little too much to be desired for me. 28.8 points per game last year. Giving up is way too much. They need to cut down that number. Certainly, this defense has a lot of question marks.
Another team has some question marks, the Florida Gators. Billy Napier, hoping he has a long enough leash to get this program turned around. This upcoming season figures to be another tough one, though, Nick. Obviously Graham Mertz is going to take over at quarterback. I think that scheme at Wisconsin really didn't make him look great, but I don't think he's going to be any better here in this one, this spread option type of offense. He's a good distributor. He really repped it against lesser competition. Maybe some more RPOs this year. I don't think it's really going to help him. But confidence and rhythm, I think, will potentially allow him to progress. But he's a statue in the pocket. Last year, that Anthony Richardson really helped out this running game. And even with his loss, though, I expect him to still be productive. Montreal Johnson, a physical back. Trevor Etienne, great burst and nice long speed. Cam Carroll, good rotational piece, running behind a phenomenal offensive line, led by Austin Barber. He spent time at both tackle spots. Full-time left tackle this season. Very effective in both facets of his game. Only allowed 1 sack. Kingsley Uklon, third-year starter at center. Richie Leonard, primed for a larger role. Pretty solid reserve over the past couple seasons. Micah Mazakua from Baylor, high-level run blocker, comes from a very similar style of offense, powerful lower body. And Damian George, a phenomenal add from Alabama, 6'6", 333. Jalen Farmer, 6'5", 334. Lindell Hudson, a late add, 6'6", 300 from FIU. Love what this offensive line has, the 2 deep wide receiver core, though. They lost their next top 4 pass catchers after Ricky Pearsall, Adon Mizell, Eugene Watson, Andy Jean. Some guys who have some great talent from the high school spot. They're expected as true freshmen to come in here and produce. This passing game is really not going to do much this season, I don't think, Nick. With the run game, it's going to be a catalyst here for the Gators.
Certainly an issue with this passing game for Florida here. I think Graham Mertz is just really not a good fit for this offense. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Montreal Johnson's a very good running back. I like to see what he can do this year. I think the size is great. Tien's very good. Ricky Pearsall's a nice wide receiver. But overall, this passing game is going to be poor this year. I think they're going to struggle through the air. They struggled last year, 223 yards per game through the air, but 200 yards per game on the ground, 24th mission there. Offensive line has some good pieces, certainly nice blocking pieces. It's going to be a ground and pound type of year for Florida. They're really going to have to rely on the running game this year if they're going to have any life on offense.
The defensive side of the ball, 29 points per game almost last year, 100th against the run, 118th in 10-plus yard rushing plays allowed. They only get 4 starters back, 14 guys transfer out. Chris McClellan, really nice physical player up front for them. Caleb Banks from Louisville. I think from Memphis, Cameron Jackson was an impactful run defender, might be able to do something. Added some nice 4-star defensive linemen, guys like Haram James, Kelby Collins. So they're certainly doing well on the recruiting trail, and I think that's certainly going to be a big part for them moving forward. But for this year, it's really going to be up to Desmond Watson, a massive player. He was at 415 pounds last year. Not sure what he's at now, but he's great at clogging gaps. Good wrap-up tackler. Stamina seems to get a little bit better as well. Princely, Umanamimali, good run stopper, very effective pass rusher with some good anticipation. This defensive line, I think, is a little bit better. People will give it credit for, but I don't think they're going to be much better against the run. I think moving forward over the next couple of years, we're really going to see this unit take shape.
I think this is a unit that's certainly improving. I just don't think they'll be that great this year. They continue to get better. Desmond Watson's a good player. Princey Unalamale is a good player as well. 6'5", 245 on him. DeAndre Mitchell, Samir James as well are certainly players that are improving. Chris McClellan as well is another good player of physical development. This certainly is an improving defense, but overall I think they're going to struggle to certainly stop the run.
Yeah, Shamar James, a guy who's the 7th-ranked linebacker in class of 2022. Good athletic stature. Trajada Mitchell, they're going to pair them up together, a former team captain after 4 years with the Buckeyes. He plays with some speed and energy, really lay the boom. I'm not really thrilled with the middle of this defense. Derek Wingo, Scooby Williams played sparingly last year. Deuce Sprulock from Michigan is going to be in here. I do think the secondary is some nice talent. Kamari Wilson, proved to be a great tackler, plenty of ups and downs in his freshman campaign. R.J. Moten comes over from Michigan, a good communicator, really good at diagnosing the run, a fluid player with some quickness. Jason Marshall, strong finish to the end of 21, didn't really take that leap this past season. Does have a strong core, though, some good instincts and anticipation. I think Corey Raymond's going to do good work with him. Jalen Kimber battled health. Jaden Hill may occupy the slot after an inconsistent year after his ACL tear. And then Devin Moore showcased some promise as a run stopper. So I think the secondary here has the ability to be the best defense for this unit. I think we're going to see some slight improvements, but they're not going to be a unit that's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with a Georgia or an LSU or anything like that.
I think as a unit that's improving, but I think the secondary is about a year or two away from being SEC East, or what will be left of the SEC East once they transition out divisions next year. I think there are some nice pieces here. Kamari Wilson's a good player, RJ Moten as well. I just think Florida are going to be a tough spot this year. I think Billy Napier is continuing to struggle through this rebuild. It's going to be a tough rebuild, continue to be tough for the Florida Gators.
And then capping things off in the East, Vanderbilt, 3-9. Even if this team is returning more, I still wouldn't put much on them because this is not a team I'm going to rely on or pick, man. I just don't think it's all that great. AJ Swan is a quick release at quarterback. They have a true freshman, Cedric Alexander, is probably going to be the starter in the backfield. After being 59th nationally and running the ball, it's pretty sound. I think Will Shepard leads the receiving core. It's a little bit underrated with Jaden McGowan, Marion Carter. I think they certainly have Quincy Skinner as well. Pretty talented receiving core. Some nice size and some nice improvements on the offensive line with guys like Gunnar Henson, Julian Hernandez. I think these guys will be better. Bradley Ashmore, a 6'6", 310. But overall, this is a team that just really seems to lack talent on offense. I gave the defense an F. They were 125th in points per game, more outside the top 120 in passing yards and yards per game. They lost one of their top developmental players in Jedias Richards. Christian James come back up front. He was their best run defender. I think C.J. Taylor is a very versatile player who's going to make some plays in the secondary. Clark Nick, I think he's going to have a long leash here. As an alumni, it's exactly what you need in a job like this, but it's only going to get tougher with the addition to this conference. 3-9 for me. They were able to somehow win 5 games last year because they had 2 late season upsets over Kentucky and Florida, who had first round NFL draft talents at quarterback. So that was very odd there. But that's good potential, some good upside. That's certainly promising for this program. I don't care though. 3 wins for me. Hopefully they can prove me wrong.
Certainly a long rebuild in Nashville is going to continue to be tough for this Vanderbilt team. They're going to continue to struggle. Clark Lee is a good coach to lead this. I like that they have an alumni. AJ Swan's a decent quarterback leading the helm. Will Shepard's a nice wide receiver, a good reliable pass catcher. Offensive line has some talent. The defense is just poor across the board. Numbers are not great. There's really not enough talent at all here. Vanderbilt struggles in recruiting. Obviously, that's certainly a big issue. The rebuild's going to take a while. Like I said, this Vanderbilt team is not going to be great this year. They could get a couple upset wins potentially like they did last year and push towards bowl eligibility. I'm just not seeing it right now.
And capping things off with some awards here, KJ Jefferson's going to have a great year for Arkansas through the air and on the ground. Harold Perkins, unanimous Defensive Player of the Year choice. Kirby Smart or Nick Saban, those guys will meet in Atlanta. One of them for Coach of the Year for what's usually a pretty solid award in terms of parity. Mason Smith, I think he's going to be an easy breakout player of the year for the Tigers. You have Omar Spates being the newcomer of the year for LSU, so obviously some big-time playmakers there for that defense. Zakaria Franklin from Ole Miss, I think he'll be the newcomer of the year. He's going to get a lot of production in that Lane Kiffin offense. And I think Auburn, with some of the additions they made in the portal under Hugh Freeze, adding a quarterback that's going to be serviceable in Peyton Thorne, allows them to be the biggest sleeper. Pretty straightforward with these awards, Nick. Not too much that we maybe Missouri's maybe a bold take there. But everything else, maybe Jane Daniels, Offensive Player of the Year, LSU with 3 awards really for you on this page, but finishing runner-up in the West is certainly something that may be controversial. But I think overall this is a very talented conference. Not easy to predict these one bit.
I have LSU getting 3 awards of finishing runner-up simply for the one reason they got to play Florida State week 1, and they have to travel to Tuscaloosa. It's very tough to win in Tuscaloosa. It's difficult. I just don't think LSU has enough talent right now to beat Alabama at home. I know they beat them in 2019, but that team was a generational type talent team. But Jaden Daniels, I think he's a very dynamic offensive weapon, and in a year where the Offensive Player of the Year is really wide open, there doesn't seem to be a front runner that can nail it down. I think Daniels, why not Daniels? He's getting a lot of love in the Heisman talk recently, so certainly can be involved with that. I have Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC title because I think Georgia just plays too weak of a schedule. I think that by the time they get to the end of the season, it won't have been tested enough. and Alabama will come in and blitz them through the air and rough up a secondary that shows some struggles like they did 2 years ago. I think that's going to be the key here that will get Alabama the win in the conference title game. I think Nick Saban will get Coach of the Year because of that. My breakout player of the year, Luther Burden. It goes hand in hand. My sleeper in Missouri. I think Missouri's primed for a surprise year. I think Burden is just going to absolutely blitz the field and get out there and really show that true five-star talent that we saw in some spots last year and saw in high school. Just didn't see enough out of him. Omar Spates, love the addition from Oregon State. Just a hard-hitting linebacker. Perfect ad for LSU overall.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.